Welcome. Excuse me. Donna's starting off with a good beat. Welcome to My American History Notes, where I discuss the conclusions I've drawn from studying American history. We're going to start with Woodrow Wilson's presidency today. A lot of momentous things happened then, kind of another turning point in American history. We will break this up into a few segments, so bear with me on that. But just to begin, Woodrow Wilson was elected 28th president, serving from 1913 to 1921. He was the most highly educated man ever to become president, having numerous college degrees and having written several scholarly books before his election. He grew up the son of a Presbyterian minister, a Southerner living during Reconstruction. His inaugural address lamented the cost in human lives and suffering that America's great industrial leap forward had wrought, and he said he saw a great responsibility the nation had as a whole for the future of mankind. Woodrow Wilson wanted to save the world. Within 2 weeks, he had taken advantage of a special session of Congress to address both houses personally, something no president had done since John Adams over 100 years before. Presidents always sending over their messages to be read by someone else. He then pushed for a tariff bill lowering those taxes, and within that bill, the first income tax under the 16th Amendment became law. To get that amendment ratified, my grandfather's generation were told, promised even, as he put it, that taxes on income would never rise above 1%. Our founding fathers rejected income taxes and all direct taxes unless they were apportioned to each state by population. An income tax was levied during the Civil War and upheld by the Supreme Court under some questionable conditions. When another income tax was levied in 1893, the Supreme Court found it unconstitutional. Liberals began pushing an income tax to, quote, soak the rich. In April 1909, a Democrat, Joseph Bailey, supposedly introduced a bill to tax income to embarrass the Republicans. He personally, it is written, was against such taxes. However, liberal Republicans such as Teddy Roosevelt were in favor of it, much to everyone's surprise that it had been the Democrats who were pushing it. President Taft then sent a message to Congress recommending the passage of a constitutional amendment allowing for the federal income tax. Republicans against the tax wanted to present a proposed constitutional amendment that would probably be defeated by the people. This insane politicking backfired as the amendment was approved under the falsehoods my grandfather, a farmer on the eastern shore of Maryland, reported, saying that only the rich were supposed to be taxed, people making the top 1%, and it would never go above 1% of our income, which is a total fraud. You give government something, you got to run with it and take it as far as they can go. Republican Congressman Sereno E. Payne of New York, who had introduced the amendment, was horrified that the political gamesmanship had backfired. He said, quote, as to the general policy of an income tax, I'm utterly opposed to it. I believe with Gladstone that it tends to make a nation of liars. I believe it is the most easily concealed of any tax that can be laid, the most difficult of enforcement, and the hardest to collect. That it is, in a word, a tax upon the income of honest men and an exemption to a greater or lesser extent of the income of rascals. So I'm opposed to any income tax in time of peace. I hope that if the Constitution is amended in this way, the time will not come when the American people will ever want to enact an income tax except in time of war, unquote. The reaction of the amendment, the ratification of the amendment was accompanied by fraud and interference, and to this day, some legal scholars insist it was never legally ratified, although several courts have upheld it. And I would suggest trying not to pay your income taxes, as the government will simply take it from you, using your employer and your bank as collection agents. Just remember the attitude. I wouldn't suggest not paying your income taxes because the government will take it from you through your employer or bank. Just remember the attitude of our Lord with regard to taxes and the supernatural method by which he paid his. Read Matthew 17:24-27 and Matthew 22:21. Even if unlawful or unjust, we have no excuse not to obey the law, even while fighting to change it. That, of course, is my own personal belief. The first tax ranged from 1% on the first 20,000 of taxable income and was only 7% on incomes above a half a million. In 2006 dollars, that 20,000 was now over between 250,000 and $300,000. And of the half million is today over 6 million, according to one source I read. In 1939, 26 years after the 16th Amendment was adopted, only 5% of the population, counting both taxpayers and their dependents, was required to file returns. In 1943, to help pay for World War II, the withholding tax came into being, where the employer became a collection agent for the federal government, taking money out of your check before you get it. Now, half of all federal revenue is raised by income taxes. So we're going to continue with the Federal Reserve Act next time, talking about Wilson. So I thank you for listening, and I hope you study this and come to your own conclusions. Thank you.